Hey, Canon Hydrotherapists, welcome to this month's Facebook Live. And I've got my partner, Angela Griffiths, once again. Thanks, Angela. Always lovely to be online with you to chat. We always have such great conversations, and I always learn so much from you.
Yeah, great to be here. Look forward to it. I love our little sort of half hour round the world tussle. It's great. So yeah, great fun.
So today we're going to be chatting about owner compliance. And I think it's such an important topic because, when we have better owner compliance, we have better outcomes. And sometimes, our outcomes can be affected by whether what our clients are prepared to do and what they're not prepared to do. And, when I was thinking about this topic, I was, thinking about, times when we have a suggestion as to how many times, say, for example, we think one of our patients should be doing hydrotherapy. So we think, okay, it should be having hydrotherapy twice a week. And then the owner says, well, I can't afford that, or whatever the reason may be, I can only do it once a week. And then, 2 months down the line, they're not happy with the progress that their dog has made, but we're not actually doing the optimum treatment for them. So I really, really think that this conversation is going to be so beneficial to the canine hydrotherapy community, because I think that it's a struggle that a lot of us have. So guys, please, I want you to just post in the comments if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions. We're here to learn from one another. So Angela and I are going to be discussing sort of our experiences with this and what's helped us. But I'm sure there are loads of you that have also had these kind of situations, and you're going to be able to share some pearls of wisdom with us too. So post in the comments, post questions. Welcome. I see we've got quite a few people online. Guys, welcome. And I think, Angela, where a really good start is maybe just to start with, because I think there's so many reasons why owners are non-compliant. What are the reasons?
I think top of my list, we just had a talk about it with the team here, is almost denial of the problem. They don't realize how serious the problem is. A lot of them just want to pay you for you to fix it. And physios have this with their human patients all the time. It's all very well coming for the consult and getting all that information, and the same with doctors and vets. You go for that consult, go away. If you don't do what you've been asked to do, or you don't take the medication that's prescribed, it doesn't work. And hydro is very much the same. So I have many conversations where I explain to people, look, if there's limited funds, we're in a golden time now. If we can only afford 10 sessions, let's do 10 sessions in 5 weeks, because it will be far more effective for whatever is wrong with that particular dog than spreading it out over 20 weeks, so what the other thing is that we say is we try and explain it in layman's terms, and we say, look, if you go to the gym and it kills you and you've done half an hour's work and you don't go again for 2 weeks, every time you go back, you're going to be exactly back where you started, and we need to have some progression. I also sugarcoat it a bit with saying, look, if you really can't manage twice a week, once a week with great regularity is much better. We don't want to see you twice and then we don't see you for 2 weeks, because it won't work. And I would prefer that you spent your money in another way. We're not going to provide treatment that won't work for you and that we can't give you results with, So with denial, we have denial about how bad the problem is, how serious it is for their dog, and linked to that very often is denial about the dog being in pain. And then you've got the other things where they're freaking out about time, money, their busy lives. If someone suddenly turns around to me and says, add into your week, you need to go to the hydro centre 3 times a week, I'm going to freak out about it. How am I going to organise that? How am I going to organise all my other commitments? And then you've got children paying the bills. We can't do all of our appointments out of hours, evenings and weekends, but people need to go to work. So there's those kind of things, I think. But I think the failure to comply is very similar with the failure to comply with doctors' instructions, physio instructions with humans, and the same things that apply to themselves also apply to their dogs very often.
Yeah, I think also sometimes we're quite accepting of non-compliance. Not that we want to be, but we feel like we have to be. And I think really, when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking, well, who's to blame for owner non-compliance? And I actually thought it's me. I'm the one to blame because
Yeah.
depending on my clients and what the reason for their non-compliance is, I need to come up with ideas or communicate to them in a way that's suitable for them. And I think that this is really what I'd like to go over is that the different types of people, like we discussed, people with families, people with kids, how we need to be able to give them solutions to be able to fit it in. I mean, okay, there's some people that we just can't. And there are also some people that I think that come to us and are just not prepared to do anything that we suggest. And those people are very, very frustrating. But I think that we do need to take the responsibility to communicate things. And, once you've gone through all those different reasons, because I think that there are quite a lot more, which I'd like to just touch on. I'd like to then go through, ways in which we can communicate better. Because I think that often we take for granted our knowledge. And if I think about myself, I've had clients, for example, generally when I give therapeutic exercises, I'll give one exercise each week, that they must do because they do more than they can't remember. And as simple as a weight shifting exercise. And then they come back the next week and you ask them, how did you get on with the exercises? And they say, couldn't remember how to do it. And I really think this is not rocket science. I mean, I showed you, in my mind, I showed you just rock the dog from side to side.
But in their mind, they go away, they're confused. I've had it where they're weight shifting onto the wrong leg. They quite often, they will phone us, some people, and say, the physio asked me to do this, I'm not sure I'm doing it right. We do a lot of follow-up where they have their initial consult, they give them some exercises. I'm a great fan of give them 2 or 3 things, show them how to do it, get them to demonstrate it to you because they'll remember it better if they physically do it themselves. And then we follow up when they come, say that's if they've seen our physio. Then when they come for their hydro, we just say, how's the exercises going? Have you managed them? What's difficult? And maybe we might drop out one of the exercises that maybe the dog's difficult with or non-compliant, or it needs 2 people and there's only one of them. But what we'll also do is then say, show me what you're doing, and then just tweak it so that, if they're doing sits to stands, we emphasize it's quality over quantity. Let's have 3 good ones. Just try that 3 times a day. Let's do that rather than trying to do 5 times a day badly. So it's giving them support and saying, look, I know how difficult it is. But if we want to put this together with the hydro and everything else, we're going to have to make this work somehow, I think one of the ones that I draw an absolute line at non-compliance with is failure to go to the vet when they've been asked to get further analgesia. And we would withdraw treatment and say, until we have analgesia in place, and I've had this 2-3 times this week, we cannot progress. I've got a dog that's a spinal, non-diagnosed spinal case. The dog needs an MRI. It needs it urgently. Basically on Saturday, I said, until your dog has the MRI, we cannot do anything else because I can't progress without diagnostics. And that kind of raises the bar and says, this is urgent and it must be attended, and you can't spend another 2 weeks worrying about which place to go, and because one's 30 miles further, or there are excuses for not progressing something the dog badly needs now. But analgesia is absolutely the line in the sand, and I've done it a number of times where we stop treatment, we need analgesia, then we can do effective treatment. And then you get the denial, dog's not in pain, failure to understand the dog's in pain. Phrases like, my top of the list drives me crazy one is the dog is being lazy. And then I have a conversation, and you have to be really careful. I think that your annoyance or frustration doesn't show because you've had this conversation 50 times already that week. And I explained dogs are not lazy, they're like children. A 3 or 4-year-old child is not lazy. If it's not doing something, it's because it doesn't see a reason to, or because it hurts or it's unpleasant for it. And then we go through that and we keep every member of the team gives the same message basically.
So here's a question. I wonder how much of the non-compliance that we have is due to us not communicating and educating them enough as to why they need to do things. And then another thing is to think about is sometimes over communicating. I mean, sometimes it is volume overload for these clients. They come into the first consultation and we just like, the flooring, what you using, what bed you're using, and they're just like, whoa, this is just too much.
And underlying that is almost like we're criticizing their care until this point. Like, why haven't you done this? That's what they're hearing. You're a bad mother. You're a bad person for letting your dog get overweight. So you have to remove that judgment from it. I used to spend a lot of time working with the physios where say you had physios are highly educated, degree level, they communicate at the same level, like a lot of vets. But that doesn't mean they're always good communicators with the owners. And often I would find myself in that in-between role of saying what she means is, because you're getting that blank look that you might have had perhaps with my parents when they're with the vet or someone, where they don't understand. And they're certainly not going to say they don't understand what they've just been told. So I would kind of think, that person's not going to really understand that. There might also be a language difficulty or an age, you need to go slower. Tell them 5 things they can remember, write it down. We're just making some short videos of the standard exercises you give, showing people on video how to do it, So some people are better with writing, some people are better with a video. But they should leave confident that they know what the plan is, what they need to do, and that you're going to be having a conversation with them and just not checking up on them, but checking on how they're doing. And is there anything else I need to do to help you get that right?
Yeah, I think that we really have to get them to believe that what we are doing is going to have an impact and it's change their dog's life. And I think that is the one area where we need to communicate, that they need to trust us. So I think sometimes they might not be they don't have actually 100% buy-in that this is going to help. And that's from our side that we have to change things, so it's educating.
I spend a lot of time saying, look, trust me, believe me, I've never had an FHO dog not put its leg down at some point, but it's going to take time. I try and maybe put them together with another client next to them who says, I was like that. I didn't think it would work, but look at my dog now. So there's various ways of doing that. But I think it's a personality thing as well, isn't it? Does the person trust and believe in you? Do they believe what you're doing is for the benefit of the dog? It's not about the money or the bottom line or any of those things. It's about, I am focused on getting your dog better and improving your dog's life. And sometimes that means, and do you know what, if I'm going to upset you a little bit along the way, that's fine, because my focus is I want your dog to have a good quality of life, and you might not like me now, but you'll be pleased later, So sometimes we do good cop, bad cop with that as well, with the compliance thing.
Yeah, for sure. Should we chat a little bit about some ways in which we can improve compliance? What suggestions have you got?
Number one, don't overload, like you said, don't overload with every bit of information and every exercise we can think of that will help this dog. Start off gentle, get them to do maybe 3 things well that they can understand and do, and then you can review and add in later. Explain if you want them to come to Hydro. Tell them a little bit about how Hydro works, why it works. Give them, share some of our knowledge at a basic level. It depends on the education of the person you're talking to, but don't overload them. Give them something that is achievable and then scale up from there. And the other thing we do is kind of tie them in, if it's Hydro, to maybe 10 sessions, if we can get that commitment, because for the first 2 or 3, they'll see no benefit. They may, but they may not. And actually, we need 4 or 5 or 6 sessions. Then they start to see the changes and that it works. And I think our biggest obstacle is people coming in who don't really think it's going to work. They've not had the benefit of physio or Hydro themselves. Maybe their vet hasn't been very positive about that referral. They've just gone, yeah, go, it won't hurt, it might help. Sometimes it's very positive from the owner because they really want to come to you because they've had benefit and they understand. But often the vet's a bit doubting and they're a bit doubting, or the big challenge is when you've got married couple or partners, and one of them is like, I need to do this, we need to be there, we need to spend this money, this dog needs help, and the other one's in denial, and in effect is undermining everything they're trying to do. And even in the consult, that's very difficult to manage.
Yeah, and we've all had those situations where one's on board and the other one isn't. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I used to use is information sheets.
Yeah.
Because of that volume overload, so for example, we would have an information sheet about the underwater treadmill, everything about it, what they can expect, when to start seeing improvements, what we're going to be looking at, what is important for them to look at after the treatment, because you can say all of that in the consults, and we do, because of volume overload, and because sometimes they're just so overwhelmed. It's very good to be able for them to read that again. So information about everything, whatever you're doing. So if you're giving them a home therapeutic exercise program, you create a sheet that everything that you say in the consult and more can be in that sheet, where they can then reference to. So then the next time they come back, they're so much more prepared, and they've actually had a chance just to absorb all of that. And I think, in today's day with cameras on phones, I think, if I think about people, so for example, I am a reading type of person. When I read something, I absorb it and I understand it, and I'm quite visual. I'm not auditory at all, but people are all different. So my husband is auditory, and so we need to be aware that people are different. So sometimes we think if you just show someone, if they're not a visual type of person, even though you're speaking, they're not getting it. So give it to them in a written form, a visual form, an auditory form. The video they can hear, they can see. You can also write instructions. We got to just be creative in the way in which we communicate with them to improve their compliance in any way we can.
What I'm finding increasingly is mobile phones are actually our friends in this, because sometimes clients can say, they'll actually say, do you mind if I film you showing me, or can you film what I'm doing? So they'll film, and then they'll share that film at home with their family members. And sometimes they say, can you say all that again, but say it, on the phone for me, because that's how that's how things are going. So that's really useful. Or we take a little video, I get them on WhatsApp, and then I share it. So I'm a very visual person. I see things in pictures. My background is art. So I will always draw a picture or a diagram. But while I'm drawing the diagram, sort of say, look, this bit goes here. This is how it works. And for some people that works. For other people, they want a sheet all written down. But I think you've got to do the info sheet, the film of the particular exercise probably now. You could put them on your website, couldn't you? You could have a little, but then the scary thing is people just go and click on it and start doing it randomly without any background. But you could give them links to particular downloads, that kind of thing. So I think it's film and written, and then back up and support. The other thing, when we give the home exercise program, don't just say sit to stands 5 times a day, actually write that down and give them an idea of when that might be. And I do a grid for them, like a bit of an Excel sheet, or they do it for themselves if they're familiar with that. And then say, look, let's be honest, like if you do 3 out of 5, that's good. Let's do that, and let's tick them off, bring the sheet in, and then let's look at what's reasonable, what can we achieve. I had neighbours where I put a foster dog with them, and they were supposed to only walk the dog 200 metres, sort of to the shops and back. But I knew that they would do more, so I halved what I told them, because I absolutely knew they would ignore those instructions and go all the way to the shops and back, and I could see them doing it from my house. So we adjusted and then other family members boggle them and go, oh no, they've had them off lead or running around or whatever, and then we deal with the aftermath of that. So it's having spies in place sometimes is quite useful, or other family members letting you know, no, they say we've done that, but we haven't really, so it's quite fun sometimes when you get 2 different stories.
And also, I think it's all different personalities. You start to recognize, okay, this is this type of personality. Have you identified sort of, if you can think, sort of target personalities that sort of act in a certain way with their pets?
Right. So, okay, First one, we were going through these personality types. So our first challenge, I would say, is people who are experts in their own field. So they're used to really knowing stuff and really good. And particularly if it's in the medical field. So they might be a human physio, but qualified, you know, or retired 20 years ago, or a vet sometimes, or a doctor. And they kind of don't want to hear what you're saying because they know it already, or they're uncomfortable because they're used to knowing stuff, but they feel out of their depths in this way. So then they can be quite challenging sometimes. So those kind of experts, but they're uncomfortable, I find those difficult. I sometimes find people who are, the dogs are canine athletes or they are canine athletes, and they want to push it too far, too much, all the time. What can I do now? More, rather than saying, look, we have a healing process to go to, we're going to have to take our time. So they can be a bit of a challenge. And then kind of like you say, like we just sort of touched on, the passive aggressive, I don't want to be here, I've been told I have to be here, justify why I have to spend this money and my time. So we're already starting off on quite a difficult relationship. I usually get called in for those ones, and you know, I try charm and then I try bossy, and if that doesn't work, I haven't got a lot left sometimes. But you know, sometimes the younger staff struggle with some of these people because they will challenge them, whereas they won't challenge myself and Kirsty and our vet or physio in quite the same way. They'll perhaps word it slightly more politely, but they'll still be quite questioning and challenging. But if you can explain yourself and the reasons why you're doing things, then fine. So I don't know. The other consult I always find very difficult is school holiday consults. So we've got the person, the dog that's the patient, another dog that's nothing to do with the consult, causing chaos, and 3 children try and open doors, disappear, and no one's listening to what you're saying, and they still got their bloody phone on, and they're looking at messages on that, and it's like, you're only going to hear 20% of what I say anyway, and in fact we're down to 2% now. So we kind of try and manage those situations by removing other dog distractions, you know, all of that. We need some focus, don't we? And some respect for the professional that's giving them good advice that they're paying for. I just like, that's what we've dealt with.
That's a great example. That's a great example. And you know, what it makes me think is that, you know, owner compliance is actually a team approach. You know, because it's important for the whole team that owner is compliant. Yeah. And I think that we need to educate our team in why we need compliance and how we are going to make our clients improve their compliance. You know, so the team here in that instance came to your help, said, well, listen, this is not going to work. And I think if you have sort of protocols, for example, you know, when they're children and the child's not sitting there quietly and you can hear that, come in and ask the child if they want to read a story or whatever. Because you know that everything that you say in that consult, the next time, it's just going to be a waste. You know, the next time they're going to come and they're not going to remember anything. Absolutely. And that really also, you know, what you said about looking at the different people, you know, and what you need to do is we need to adapt basically depending on that person. So we need to make suggestions depending on their circumstances. For example, the working woman who's got kids and she's a professional, whatever, she's a lawyer, whatever. If there are other suggestions that we can make, for example, if she can't make every 2 weeks, to come twice a week for appointments, do we know somebody who she could pay? Probably prepared. So these are all the kind of things we have to think about. This is their problem. How can we help them to get through all of this?
Totally. And one of the challenges we have is, I suppose, where you've got a very well-off owner, very busy, and actually they may come for the first consult or they may not. They may send someone else. And our problem is actually having communication and having someone there with the dog who actually knows the dog, who cares for the dog and looks after the dog, and can put instructions in place. So I've got clients where I've never spoken to them, I've had no contact, and in fact it's the housekeeper or the dog sitter or whatever who knows far more about that dog and looking after them than the actual owner. And then that gets quite difficult, because they're getting your information secondhand. We have odd people where there's security in place where we can't communicate for whatever reason. But in general, it's where you have people perhaps who work in London, they're away, they send someone with the dog, and that's great. At least the dog is coming to us. But it's how do you get that communication through to that person about how important the home care is, because once the housekeeper goes home or whatever, then the dog's sliding around on the kitchen floor, that kind of thing. So again, it's making sure that those reports and those explanations go to that other person or to all of the carers, and that they all buy in. I suppose another non-compliance thing going on from that is where you have dog walkers or dog carers who also are not part of the team and who ignore instructions. And we've had a few problems with that, where the dog is supposed to be on lead, walked alone, and that's not what happens. And then we have a bit of a disaster, or that non-compliance means that the dog's in pain, in an inflammatory response all of the time. So when you've got multiple carers, none of whom have a proper overall responsibility, then that's quite difficult to manage, I feel.
Yeah, and I think that's where we come in, is that you need to follow up on those cases. Often we're very trusting. We don't have a lot of time. We've now had the consultation with the carer, and we just trust in them that they are going to hear that information, but we can't. Yeah. So we need to follow up with a phone call to the owner. If we don't get hold of them, then an email. And I would do both, phone call and email, because often you're phoning them, they're on their way home, or they've just picked up their kids. And they're distracted because it's not maybe an appropriate time to remember all that information. So it's really, really, it's important that you always follow up and communicate. And, I'd like to even say in any owner that you have that you feel that they're not compliant, you need to ask yourself the question, what is the reason that you think so? And then try and get from them, ask them questions. Ask them where we stand, because often we assume things, right? And if I think about it, sometimes you have the type of person, for example, that is just thrifty, so they don't like to spend money on anything. But if they think that it's going to be of value, they will, and so they come across.
Totally.
Straight away, we have this. They're not going to pay. This is all about money, but it actually isn't, and it's actually about. They can't deal to see the dog in discomfort. There's some complete other reason. So it's our responsibility to ask these questions. And, what I'd like to say is to follow up with these clients. So say, for example, you see a client, you give them exercises, you're only going to see them in 4 or 5 days' time again. Then, schedule that, in certain times in your treatment plans, that you actually pick up the phone and phone them to find out how they're doing. Because I also think that, a lot of the time it can be a little bit intimidating, especially when you don't have the knowledge. And maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's one of the canine hydrotherapists, or maybe it's a vet nurse that's working there that picks up the phone, and they feel that they can actually communicate better with them to say, actually, when Dr. Kelly was showing me these exercises, I actually didn't know what she was talking about.
Not a clue. And I don't feel like evidence. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think, they'll often be more comfortable talking to a junior member of staff. And going back to what you said about the team, and doctors and vets have this all the time as well, that actually it's the junior team that will pick up on things and will pick up on non-compliance, and that might be with diet, even something like that. Or what they'll pick up on is what else is going on in that person's life. They've got cancer, they've got elderly parents that they're trying to care for, and maybe a disabled child. And it's like, and when you find out, so I quite often spend quite a bit of time trying to, gently touch on the social circumstances. There's no point, if we don't understand the family circumstances, in asking them to do something they can't cope with. And sometimes that not coping with is, I've got an example at the moment where we've just said, do you know what? Your dog's a spinal injury dog. I know you were going to put it into kennels. Why didn't you let the dog come to us? The lady's having to go in and have some surgery, which means she won't be able to lift the dog. They've got a major family crisis going on. And I've just said, look, I can make it better. Give me your dog and we can do rehab, So there's that sometimes. I'm lucky I can do that. But there's other things, like put them in touch with someone who can perhaps care for the dog and can do the things that need doing. But those junior members of staff, junior nurses, whatever, are often the person that gets that inkling about, my God, I don't even know how this person is getting out of the door and they're getting to this appointment. They've got so much else going on. And as soon as you know, you go, okay, now we understand the problem. What can we do? And I think those words are really important. What can I do to help help you achieve what we need to for your dog? Because you love your dog. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And it's not a money thing very often. They dress it up as a money thing, but it often isn't. Another example is I had a client who came in with a lab, and she basically said to us, she came from a horse background, and I understand with horses often they're euthanized if they can't do their job, or say from a farming background. I have that sort of approach sometimes as well as a working dog. And she said to us, basically, you've got 2 weeks to get some improvement, because if not, I'm not going to keep throwing money at this dog, which was shocking to hear. It's like, oh, no pressure here. As we got to know her better and got to know more, actually what was happening was the dog was crying all night. It was in a lot of pain and she couldn't cope with it. She loves the dog dearly, but she didn't want to show that emotional side of herself to us when she just met us. So she said, you've got 2 weeks to get it fixed, and dressed it up as a money thing. And it wasn't actually the case at all.
Yeah, I think that one of the take-home points that I really want you guys to take is that you can't treat everyone the same. So if you have a non-compliant owner, there isn't a recipe as to how to get them compliant. You've got to look at the people, as Angela says, look at their situation, because often we don't know, and we assume why they're struggling, and often it's a completely different reason. So thanks so much, Angela. I just wanted to share a comment, because you've got a big fan in the audience. Somebody has spoken. Angela from Greyfriars is the world leader of rehab and hydrotherapy. That's such an awesome comment. And unfortunately,
quite embarrassing. So thank you. That's sweet. Yeah. Whoever it is.
Facebook's privacy rules, we don't know who it is. I think everybody else who's watching knows, but we don't know who it is. So we don't know who it is. But thank you for that wonderful comment. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. If you guys are listening to the recording, we'd love to hear your suggestions or your comments, and any questions, and Angela and myself will we'll pop online over the next 2 days or so to answer any questions that you have. And I hope you guys have found this really, really interesting. I must say, for me, in my mind, when I thought about owner compliance, it was all about the owner. But it's really, for me, it's just sort of like, what is my part actually? Yeah. And my part is the big part. That we have to look at what we do.
And it might be you are the problem. Your personality doesn't gel with that person. So maybe someone else in the team or someone else can do a better job. And let's not have an ego about it. The important thing is getting the job done for the person and the dog, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's not about us.
Exactly. Angela, thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.
All right, bye-bye.